Hi, this is Larry Watlington, and guess what, guys? We are in week 7. Can you believe that? Week 7 of this almost completed course. One more week to go, and we're going to be there, and you've got another 3 credits under your belt. What are we talking about this week? Well, we're going to get into some negotiating privacy laws and legal disputes. Okay, let's do this. So, when we think about this week, let's think of some of the things we're going to talk about as we do each week. I think you kind of see the pattern by now, right? Some of the learning objectives, like I say, describe how to the types of excuse me, I'm sorry, legal disputes, whether it's civil, criminal, or private, and the types of evidence used to resolve these different disputes. And we're going to talk about security controls and how to design security controls and practices into your systems. And these are human intelligence, human type controls, things that we can do to protect our systems a little bit better. And we take a look at this module at a glance. As always, complete the knowledge checks, review the glossary for different terms you're going to learn. We got a discussion this week, yes we do, on legal disputes. As always, get your initial post in by Thursday, and then you have time to respond to at least 2 of your peers, okay? Also, try to respond to any things that I throw out there as well, because sometimes I'll put something extra, a little something right there in those discussion posts for you. And we're going to complete Project 3 this week, service level agreements. SLAs, and you're going to hear that term quite often, especially in business if you're working with cloud services, or if you have subcontractors or vendors who are providing things, different types of services. You want to have a service level agreement in place. So that's Project 3 that goes on this week. Some of the resources you're going to use in this class this week, and NIST 850, Rev 1, also summary of HIPAA security, privacy laws. Textbook this week, chapters 11, 12, 15. Now, also one of the resources I don't have listed here is the CIS security controls. That will be used as well. Now, some of the things to think about this week as we're going through the module, right? What are general contract law principles? Now, understanding contract law and what type of contract laws are specifically geared towards cybersecurity, or cyberspace holistically, as we call that. What some general criminal law types and different criminal laws, because there is a difference between some of the general laws and criminal laws with respect to cyberspace, cybersecurity investigations, and the things we have to do from that nature. Now, this is a big area right here. Like I say, we don't get into it too deeply in this class, but I know there are many times people who graduate and they have a desire to say, yeah, I want to work forensics. Wow. It's a very, very lucrative but very interesting area to work, where you have to manage evidence. And this is really big in the cyberspace arena. Understanding how to collect evidence, how to bag and tag, how to properly manage evidence from the time that it's collected to the time that it goes to court. Now you got to remember, because sometimes there could be time frame of years, when thing before a crime is committed and it goes to court. And when you think about this type of evidence, especially if you're interested in security forensics, just remember one thing. In life, you can't unsee certain things, okay? So when you talk about this evidence, this could be evidence associated with child pornography, with human trafficking, with all different types of things, some of the undesirable things in our society that you have to look at, you have to process, you've got to handle this evidence. So just be aware when you're thinking about career paths. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. No, I just always want to be realistic up front. Things that you're going to deal with within the realm of cybersecurity forensics. It's not always what you see on TV, on NCIS, and some of these other programs. But we'll get into that a little bit this week also. Now, one of the areas that I enjoy going through and teaching on is security controls. We've talked about security controls, I think, in 2 different weeks of this class, where we've touched on security controls. And this week, like I say, especially as you're doing your project, you're going to be looking at some of the security control families out of the CIS framework. Okay, so there's 18 in that framework, and these are about 6 or 7 that you're going to look at specifically. Last week, we already talked about training the workforce and how to identify social engineering attacks, things like that. But these will all be a part of your Project 3 assignment for the week. Now, specifically, I'm just going to take a little bit of time this week to talk about 3 specific controls. inventory of your hardware assets, inventory of software assets, and control use of administrative privileges. Now, when we think about controls, here again, in the mind of most of us who are in the field of cybersecurity, we go straight to techie. We want to do the techie stuff. And so many times we blow right by so many security controls that aren't always, nice and pretty, and that sometimes it's just administrative and nug work, what I call nug work, where you just got to do the same processes, repeating it over and over again. And sometimes that area especially exists with respect to asset management. Now, one of the things I always say, you can't protect what you can't see. So if I don't know what's on my network, how do I know if I am protecting it? If I don't know the assets that I have on my network, hardware assets, firmware, software, we're going to talk software in the next control, but how do I know? So I need to have visibility. I need to have visibility into what are all my systems. What's new coming online? What has been dropped offline? All these things, so this is a huge, huge part of your cybersecurity hygiene. And whether we were talking about privacy, or we're talking about confidentiality, availability, integrity, it starts here. It starts with asset management, asset visibility. And to do that good, like I say, you need some type of inventory system. If you're in a small company, this just may be Excel. You may be just running this on a spreadsheet. You get into larger organizations, and now we have automated tools that can do your database management and your inventory management for you. So regardless of where you are, the concept is the same. And I will tell you many times, just rushing into automation for the sake of automation isn't always good if you don't have good underlying processes. If you think technology and automation is going to help your processes, no. You need your processes in place first. How do I bring new equipment online? How do I dispose of equipment? How do I know when a new system is ready for deployment? Do I have a deployment checklist that says that, yes, I've done all the things that I need to do to get this system up and running and to deploy it onto the network? I've got AV, I got antivirus up and running. If I'm running Splunk, for instance, I've got a Splunk indexer or a Splunk forwarder, on that asset. DNS, like I say, yes, it's been registered on DNS. It's been assigned an IP address. So I'm able to audit that system. I'm able to see activity on that system. Port control, yes, so port security. For the port that is hooked up to the switch, is port security turned on? So just in case somebody unplugs and try to plug something else in, that port gets shut down. So those are the kind of things you want to think through, when you're talking about this. And like I say, I think I already mentioned on things like discovery tools. How do I know if someone, there's not a rogue device on my network? Do I have the right tools, whether it's SolarWinds or, if it's Nessus? And trust me, there's a lot of tools out there that you can use to look at to see, is there somebody just plugged a device? I may have a rogue access point, a wireless access point, or someone's plugged in their personal laptop. Am I able to get that and real time or near real time, as near real time as we can get? So understanding how to discover assets on your network and be able to tell the difference between an authorized asset and an unauthorized asset. So when we think about hardware assets and inventory control, just some things I just want to kind of pique your mind on of the administrative part before you go to some automated tool. Are we asking the right questions? So when you look at this control, and I forgot the control number, C2, control number 1, yeah. That is one of the things we're looking at. Now we go to control number 2. This is your inventory and control of software assets. Okay, similar to hardware, but there are some deltas. There are some differences. So first, you need to understand what type of operating systems are we running on our network. We may have Linux, you may be a Windows, maybe Mac, and you may have a mixture of all the above, which is in most cases that's probably the case. Your engineering team may be running Linux, or your web services will probably run on some type of Linux platform. Your clients and your server backbone may all be Windows as well. Now, another operating system you have to think about is if you're virtualizing, if you're doing virtualization. So now if I have VMware, EXXI running, well, that within itself is an operating system, because we're installing that right on a server and bare metal, and we're going to town. So think of all these things. Your Cisco layer 2, layer 3, layers, always layer 7, really infrastructure. You might be running software-defined networking with ICE or ACI or some of these newer software-defined tools. So you got to think about that iOS, the Cisco iOS. That, again, is an operating system that's running on your network, so that you can be aware of your operating system environment and then your third-party application environment. That's your it could be, like say, Office, Adobe, and all the different engineering or software tools that's running. That you have to have a way of, again, understanding and inventorying those software assets before they come online. And how do you do that business? Another area, and this is really big because now everything is, software centric. Well, all of these new tools, all the software centric tools that we're running, let's say if you have software developers, programmers, one of the things that they're going to want is libraries. You may need a Java library, a Python library, different types of libraries that needs to be containers, because most of us are moving into containerization, like Docker or Kubernetes. So now you have to understand, how do I manage this very dynamic software environment when, you may spin a container up and it's there for 20 minutes and it's gone. So understanding now, this is a very, very dynamic area, especially as we're going into the Agile or DevSecOps method of developing software and software code. Now, if that's not enough, now we need to understand what they call it allow listing now. I guess we can no longer, it's not passe to say white listing or black listing, but allow listing. Now, meaning that which software, which applications do I allow on my network and which applications are not allowed on my network. Being able to manage that is really critical with respect to your cybersecurity hygiene, your cybersecurity diligence, readiness, knowing the status of your network. What's allowed, what isn't. In the same vein, who can install software? And this is going to get into our next slide when we talk about privilege management. But this is part of the allow listing. Can just a regular user install an application, or does it have to be a priv user, a privileged user who have the rights, the correct permissions to be able to install software or to remove software? So all those things. Now, big area with respect to cyber hygiene, patching. So we've got all this software running up here, right? So now we have to ensure that it's properly patched. When we talk about patching, just like in your home computer, every time you turn it on, they're pushing an update. So all of this software that's running now has to be updated as well as supported, because you don't want end-of-life software on your network. Software that's not supported. Like if you're running Windows 7, for instance, that Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft. They're not pushing out any new patches or any new updates to Windows 7. So, and pretty soon, I think in 2025, 2026, Windows 10 is going to go unsupported unless you have some type of support contract in place. So you have to start planning early, for obsolescence, meaning that start tracking, be able to track within your software asset framework obsolescence. And with the thing with obsolescence, and it's the same thing with hardware. Hardware is a little more forgiving because, the hardware just the cycle doesn't turn over now as quickly as software, because it may take your company, 6 to 8 months or a year to be able to provision the resources to update a large piece of software. The migration from Windows 10 to Windows 11 could be could take a lot of effort. So you want to ensure that you have a process in place working with your IT counterparts to let them know, hey, look, Windows 10 is going to be obsolete in December 2025. I'm just making that date up, guys. Don't go out there and throw that out there. But now, how do I get this into our program managers, to our leadership, C-staff? Hey, it's time to start planning ahead, because Windows 10 is going to be obsolete, and we're going to have to move to Windows 11, because now that could take regression testing on the behalf of your engineers, your software development team, or whomever it may be in your organization, because everything that runs on Windows 10 may not automatically port over and run in a Windows 11 environment. So again, just some things to think about with respect to these two controls. And really, this is where we start. I know most of the time we want to jump in the deep end and start auditing and start doing all this techie stuff and monitoring networks. However, if we don't know what's on the network from the aspect of hardware, and we don't know the status and the cyber hygiene status of our software, then a lot of the things all those techie things we were doing looks good, looks pretty, have nice charts, but you know what? At the end of the day, people are backdooring in and out of your system, and you don't even know it. Now, the last area we're going to talk about here is control use of administrative privileges. This is big, especially when we start talking about social engineering, insider threat. This is really, you're talking about an attack vector that's looming large in our in cyberspace. We want to call it that today. Is social engineering, and then from that, where we get things like privilege escalation, and we start then building insider threats. Insider threats, I mean that there's somebody already in your network. Years ago, when we first started this business, we building networks, we came to our approach was the moat, the castle and the moat mindset. Here's the castle. You got a big moat all the way around it with alligators, and the goal was keep people from coming in from the outside. And so all your firewalls, all those things were outward facing, and that was because that was our threat, we thought at the time. Somebody trying to infiltrate our networks or penetrate our networks from the outside. Well, that's mindset has changed. Now we go into our cybersecurity posture with the thought they are already in your network. They're not trying to get in, they're already in your network. And that's the position really you want to start from, that we already have people in the network. Now we have to figure out how do we manage and protect the things that are critical within the network, knowing that threats are already there. So, and a big part of this is understanding who have administrative privileges. Not that we don't trust them, but we really don't trust anybody. But it's not so much maybe that individual, but many times someone else who has spoofed that individual through social engineering have gotten access to their accounts, and now they are slowly, escalating their privileges over time. That's things we call APTs, advanced persistent threats, where they're not in a hurry. They're not in a rush. They're not trying to do things quick. So their plan may be it's going to take us a year, 2 years for us to pull this off. So they're just going to sit, wait, move, sit, wait, move, sit, wait, and slowly infiltrate your network until they've got root access to your servers and all the other data, privacy information that you need. So what happens many times when we think about priv users, we think about one group of people, our domain administrators, they are sysad guys. Well, that is just one group. That is a group that has the keys to the kingdom. Your domain administrators, they can move freely around the network. So yes, we definitely want to understand and be able to manage these individuals who have domain system administrative rights on the network. However, there are still a lot of other individuals in your organization that may need or may have some type of elevated privileges on your network. For instance, your database administrators. To be an effective database administrator, many times they need almost the same privileges as a domain administrator. Same thing when you may have a local system administrator. You didn't have access on all the servers, all the back-end equipment, but select servers or select assets within your environment, they may have local administrator rights. If you're an organization that has to transfer data between different classification levels, then you have an individual that, like a data transfer agent, and that's their job, to be able to burn media and put that media into another system of a higher or lower classification. Again, another privileged user that you want to be able to monitor, track, and your auditors, cybersecurity auditors. Many times these individuals have elevated privileges so that they can view audit logs, audit records that should be kept away from other people in the organization. So first of all, it starts with knowing who your privileged users are. More than just that domain administrator that we typically see. There could be multiple people in your organization who have some type or some level of administrative privilege. And then once we understand who they are, that's when we start looking at, how do we manage their privileges? And again, starts off with administrative processes and procedures. I know we want to jump straight to the technical means, but no, starts with, from the time that really someone is hired, and that individual has been hired to come into your organization, understand it from a role-based RBAC, role-based access control, or even a rule-based, that individual is given just the privileges they need, just enough to do their job from the time they get there. So that position that they're in should already be coded with whoever's going to sit in this chair, they need access to A, B, C, and not D. So that's how we start that process. And then tracking those. So many times we start off great. Okay, yeah, we've identified the new system administrator. He comes in, and he or she, and we give them the right privileges. But you know what we don't do? We don't follow up. There should be some type of periodic review of these privileges, of those individuals. It could be 6 months, it could be a quarter, it could be a year, annually, but there needs to be some type of periodic review. Does this individual still need these rights and privileges? Because many times we fire and forget. And also what happens, this is what happens many times, in most organizations, let's say that this system administrator, 2 years later, they quit. They find them another job at another location. Well, if someone leaves the organization, usually deprovisioning their account, debriefing them, if they've signed an India non-disclosure agreement, all those things happens. And so we've got a good audit trail that this person left the company and their account has been disabled and all these right things have been done, the individual. However, let's say that this particular individual didn't quit, but did a lateral transfer somewhere else within your organization. Now that is so difficult to find because many times we don't even know that they've moved to another area. So we can go in and take the privileges away that they have. Because like I said, they've changed jobs. They're no longer assistant administrator. Now they are assistant to the program manager. They're doing something completely different. But if you don't know that happened, that individual's accesses could still be on that account. So that is why it's so important to have administrative processes and procedures that will undergird whatever technical means that you have. So you bring those two together, your administrative piece, your technical solutions, so that now we're able to manage or do privilege management on the individuals that we have identified who in our organizations that do require some type of escalated privilege. Okay, guys, week 7, like I say, just a quick review. Actually, should be a good week. Not a lot of things going, but should be a good week because this is a fun topic, especially when we start getting into security controls. Work on that project. By all means, please, guys, get those assignments done. If you've got assignments that have not been completed, by all means, let's go back and get them done. I will have to deduct some points for if they're late. However, any grade is better than a 0. So if you need to, if you check your grades and you see you're not doing as well as you would like to, go back and ensure that all those past assignments have been submitted, okay? Now, what you also may want to do is just shoot me a little email. Hey, Mr. Wallington, just turned in, week 4 discussion or week 4 project 1. That way, I know to go looking for it, really quickly. All right, guys, listen, have a great week. Looking for some good discussion posts, good cross flow within the discussions, and great project. Have a great week, and we're going to see you in week 8.